Greg, welcome to our pulpit. It's such a pleasure to have you here today. Let's give him a hand, shall we?
Good morning. It's a pleasure to be at Dalby Christian Fellowship. We considered this one of our home churches. When we left to go to Africa, Murray was one of the most encouraging pastors, and he said, "You guys are going to make it." So he prophesied that we'd spend time in Africa that we planned to spend, which we planned to spend 10 years. We thought we'd go over for 10 years and give it a crack. We say 16, Murray says 17, it's somewhere in the middle there. Years later, we've returned back to Australia. It's time for us to come off the field. So we just want to come and share what you guys were part of for those 16, 17 years. We consider what we did as a journey with a group of people. Kim and I are not special in any way. We just happen to serve God in Africa. It's nothing special about who we are. We're just a couple of people that said yes. God used our weakness to prove that it was Him, not our strength to do it in our own way. So we'd like to thank Dalby for their partnership all these years. You've been a very significant partner. You've sent a team over in 2011, and we had a lot of fun. It was a great team of people. They came with a spirit of, hey, let's just get it done, and we had a lot of fun doing it. And that's a great testimony to the way Dalby's church has been for us as a family. We're able to come and relax with family. It's been very encouraging and very rewarding for us. Murray always called us to see how we're doing. He'd give us a call and say, "Hey, how are you?" And it was very good to be able to have that communication and have someone looking out, because it can get a bit lonely on the field, you know, like you move from place to place, you don't speak the language, sit in church and there's a different language being spoken from the pulpit, so you don't even understand what the sermon is about. So everything's so different, and then you get a familiar voice every now and then saying, "Hey, how you doing?" It's a real encouragement. We thank Murray and Astrid for their friendship for those years. Yeah. During the first year I've been in Africa, I'm going to share some stories today, and I thought I'm going to change it up a little bit. Like I normally come and I'd preach a sermon and I'd give you a bunch of verses and share stories around those verses. I decided that I'm going to be a bit more relational today. Let you choose the verses that go with what I say, because that's what Christians do. We work out how to apply the Bible in the situation we're in. So I'm going to do something a little different today and allow you to apply the Bible to the situation that we as a family have been in. I mean, I could give you verses for everything I have to say. If you don't think anything I say is biblical, come and talk to me and I'll explain where I get it from. But I just wanted to not share a sermon, but talk to friends. Because the first year that we spent in Africa, we sat with people and we learnt their language. We sat with people and learnt their culture. And that year of sitting and talking and learning laid a foundation that got us through the remaining years in Africa. We started out with a very formal attitude and we finished with a very relaxed attitude. So I'm bringing that relaxed attitude to church today. So if this isn't comfortable for you, welcome to my world. I haven't been comfortable in church for 16 years. And I just had to apply, is God here? Yes, He is. Can God work in here? Yes, He can. So it's all good. Not wrong, just different. Yeah. Not wrong, just different. If you can apply that to everything in your life that you first see as new, you'll do okay. Yeah. So yeah, as a young family, we went to Africa in 2006. Gabby and Thomas were 2 and 4. We decided that we'd answer a call that we felt to go to Africa. Our church that we went to was in Brisbane. Our pastors were very supportive of us to take that step. We'd served in the church for many years, and we stepped out of the church and went there. God was faithful, and he showed that he could use inexperienced people to do things. And that's, I think, what our life's been. Inexperienced people doing something. In our first year, so we're in a new country, we don't know what we're doing, we don't know the language, we don't know the culture, and we're walking through a village and some people come and grab us and say, can you pray for this young girl? So we go and pray for a young girl, and Kim says, if that girl doesn't get healed by God, she's dead in the morning. I've never seen someone so sick. We prayed for her and nothing happened. God didn't heal her. So we prayed again. God didn't heal her. So we left. What are you going to do? You're going to stay there all night? So we left. The next time we walked through the village, she came and got us. And she said, when you prayed for us, God healed me. She said, we didn't see. No, she said, as you turned and walked away, I got up and I was fine. I watched you walk away. Her mother was the witch doctor. So a mother comes and gets us and says, what did you do for my daughter? I want your Jesus. And I thought, you're not ready for our Jesus. So I said, come to church. And she said, I'm not coming to church until my husband comes to church with me. So 3 times a week I'd walk past her house. 3 times a week I'd sit and have a conversation with her. And 3 times a week I'd invite her to church. Well, after about the 7th visit, she said, my husband's now ready. We're coming to church. She came to church. Her and her husband got saved. Some pretty freaked out stuff happened. But the witch doctor became a Christian. We weren't special. We didn't have years of ministry. We didn't know what we're doing. God just said, I'm going to use you in this situation. And we were there, and he was able to use us. The church we went to was a home church. The leader of the church was a friend that was a farmer. He comes and gets us the same year and says, can you come and pray for my friend's family, because my friend just died. So I went into a house and walked in, and there's a dead body on the floor. And I'm there to pray for the family. It was a pretty tough situation, pretty tough environment. I just prayed for the peace of God to be on the family. And afterwards, I spoke to my friend and said, if this guy's the chief and he's just died in the village, who's the new chief of the village? And when I say village, this thing was a city. It had 90,000 people, but it was a village atmosphere. It had wells to draw your water. No one had electricity. It was a village atmosphere, but there was 90,000 people. So it's a fairly responsible position to be chief of this area. And my friend said, I don't know who's going to become the chief, but we will decide. And a few weeks later, he comes and invites me to his ceremony to be inaugurated as the chief of the village. So, like in our first year, we saw a 90,000 people area being led by a witch doctor that's now a Christian, and a chief that's a Christian, very, very close to being a pastor. We didn't have any experience. God just chose to use us. And that was the foundation that set us for the rest of our time in Africa. It was a case of just have a crack. We don't have to be good. We don't have to know what we're doing. Just have to have a crack. Just be there and say yes, yeah? We had opposition to discredit us. We had 3 times we had bad opposition to discredit us. So in the first year, we had someone turn against us and try and discredit us so we couldn't become missionaries in Africa. They wanted us out of the country, never to return. So our response was, don't defend. Don't talk about it. Don't do anything about it. Let's see what God does. God defended us to the point where this person apologised. If you're doing something for God, expect opposition. But it's not opposition that God can't handle. You don't have to handle it. So I formed an opinion early on in our walk that it's none of my business what other people think of me. And that's kept me in good stead for a long time. I felt yesterday to share that to someone here. It's none of your business what people think of you. Just be yourself. Be who you are. God loves you. Jesus loves you. Doesn't matter what other people think. Be yourself. So for the first year, we learnt language and culture. The next 10 years, we taught the Bible. So the first 2 years of that, I'd travel out into remote areas in the bush and do a week of Bible seminars to a group of pastors. They'd all come in, meet me at a particular village, and we'd sit and do Bible teaching for a week. I'm talking remote. I drive my four-wheel drive into the bush, get to a river, not a bridge. People would make a reed mat, and we'd float the car on the reed mat across the river and get off on the other side. You think the first time I saw this done, I thought I was going to be okay? I thought I was swimming with crocodiles. I thought my car would be swimming with crocodiles, but there was no other way across, and the locals assured me that this works. So they got reeds about half an inch thick, tied them together, got them about a foot thick, and then I drove the car onto it, and they floated it across the river, and it worked every time. Remote areas. These people hadn't been given formal Bible teaching, so they ate it up. They loved it. They'd always invite us to stay and move there and live there. No electricity, no communication. So for a week, no talking to the outside world. It was pretty good living. They'd kill a pig for us on the first day. By about the third day, I'd stop eating it because no electricity, and you're living in the tropics. So I ate a lot of rice. But I slept in a tent in the village. I let them keep their homes, and I just pitched a little one-man tent and stayed in a tent, and I had my place there for the week. It was a good experience. And then after 2 years of doing that, we moved on to actually setting up formal Bible colleges in different areas. We'd run 4 Bible colleges every year. And we'd give people 1 year of Bible. Now, these pastors weren't literate, so we had to come up with a solution of how do you teach people that can't read and write. You can't spend the whole year just speaking to them. You have to get them drawing the Word of God themselves. So we found an audio Bible system. We were able to go out and give them an audio Bible and put some teaching on that Bible and help put that teaching on the audio system. Well, now everyone has a smartphone in their pocket, even in Africa. The internet system in Africa is so much better than Australia. There is no black spots. We have 4G right across Mozambique. The last year we were in Mozambique, there was no village that I could go to and not have 4G internet. So now these pastors have a device in their pocket that can teach them what I taught them. So I believe they have a skill that they're probably still using today to teach other people the Bible. These people had never been taught formally. We taught Seventh-day Adventists. We taught Jehovah's Witnesses. We taught Pentecostals. We taught Catholics. We taught them all the same doctrine because there was no one else teaching them. So they had nothing, so they took it and they were happy to learn from it. We tried to keep it a doctrine that was middle of the road, that wouldn't offend, because we didn't want someone to come in and undo everything they'd been taught. But it was a Pentecostal teaching. Out of those Bible colleges, we estimate over 800 pastors were trained. We estimate, we don't know how many churches were planted. We got up to about 600 and we stopped counting because I didn't want to be about numbers. I wanted to be about just serving God. So I don't know how many churches and how many people got saved in those 10 years, but I know it's significant numbers. I'd get numbers back from pastors, and some of them were fudged. So I couldn't believe the statistics, so I didn't believe the statistics. But I'd go and visit churches that I knew were planted by guys that went to our Bible college. So we saw significant things happening in that time. So we don't actually know how many people were touched through our ministry. We have no idea and don't really care. We just serve God, and we serve God in the capacity He wants us to serve Him. In 2009, we couldn't shake the calling to go run a primary school. Kim and I are not experienced in running a school. I'm probably a long way from being qualified to run a school. So we couldn't shake this going and running a school. So we took on a school. We had 30 staff members. We had 500 kids and no idea. Have a go. And that's exactly what we did. We had a go. So I went into the school and I said, listen, guys, we need a principal because I'm not going to be the principal. So I interviewed and found a guy that I reckon was suitable for a principal, and I felt that God was saying this guy's good for being a principal. And we found a deputy principal as well. So we gave Aroni the job as being the principal of the primary school, and we let him run the primary school. I taught him. And I said to Aroni, we don't have any money, mate, so we're running this school on faith. So please pray for your wages. You guys were significant partners of that school. We were there, we gave them 5 years. We said, I reckon in 5 years we can get you guys up to speed where you can run the school yourselves. So we gave them 5 years. So we still ran our Bible colleges and we ran the school. We just took it on as an extracurriculum activity. So we're running this school and the teachers are praying for their own wages. Well, in 4 years we're there, never once did we miss paying their salaries. We got to the stage where Kim and I emptied our bank accounts to pay the wages, and then 2 days later the money came in. That was the worst we ever got, where we had like $20 to live on for the month. But God was faithful, and he came through for us. We ended up putting a chicken farm into the school because we knew nothing about farming chickens. So let's have a crack. So I went and saw a chicken farmer here in Australia and said, what do you know about chicken farming that you can help me with? And he actually gave me the books for his chicken farm and said, have a read through this. This is very secretive information. We don't share this with people, but we're going to give it to you. So I took that information and went back to Africa and went and bought 3,000 chickens, and we had to go. Well, we built a chicken shed first, then bought 3,000 chickens and put them in the chicken shed. Then we built another chicken shed and ended up with 6,000 chickens in the chicken shed. And I went and saw the guy that I was buying the day-old chickens from. I'd see him every month and go buy some chickens. And he said to me, what's your death rate? And I said, I'm running at about 0.02% die. And he said, nah. He said, nah, mate, we run at 0.5%. I said, no, we're getting 0.02. He said, how? I said, I don't know, I'm using your feed, your chickens, your medicine. So I don't know what's going on, but our chickens were bigger than his chickens, and our chickens were healthier than his chickens, and we had no idea. It's God. Yeah? So we just kept doing things that we had no idea about, and if I got too used to it, I'd move on to something else that I had no idea about, because I don't want to be somewhere where I know what I'm doing. I'd prefer to be somewhere where I have no idea. It seems to work better for me. So we had a school in Mozambique where we had no idea. We had a chicken farm that we had no idea how to run. The Department of Ag got jealous and tried to kick us out of the country. So we had the Director of Agriculture call meetings with the community to throw some dirt around so that they could have an excuse to get us kicked out. Well, the community defended us. They wanted us to stay because the government didn't realise we were educating their kids for free. They wanted us to stay. They liked what we're doing. They liked the taste of chicken. So they defended us, and the government turned around and gave us 600 acres of land. Because we didn't defend ourselves. They called a public meeting, I left town. I'm not going to a public meeting about myself. You want to kick me out, kick me out. What do I care? If God wants me in Kenya, in Mozambique, I'll stay in Mozambique. If God wants me out, I'm gone. Me defending myself is not going to change a thing. So we didn't defend ourselves, and God defended us through the people. And then the Department of Ag decided that we were actually good people. Then we end up handing... that's when the team from Dalby came in 2011. They helped us build a couple of classrooms for the school. We built a couple of classrooms with no money. I said to the principal of the school, we need 2 classrooms. We have $700. How far do you reckon it'd get us? So $700 got us to dig the foundations. That's where we got to. We had no money. So I said, you've got to pray for it, mate. If you want these classrooms, you have to pray for it. So him and I and the teachers, when we got them all to pray, my role in the school was to raise up the teachers and the principal and deputy principal to have some courage and have a go and actually educate those kids. So $700, we ran out of money. And a businessman happened to drive past the school. He pulls in and he says, hey guys, what are you doing? I said, we're building a couple of classrooms. He said, I'd like to give you some money for that. He's handed over some money. I mean, it doesn't happen. So we spent his money and we got up to the roof line. So time to pray again, guys. We got no money again. So we went to a meeting and there was a bunch of people sitting around the table. I knew one person and there was like 25 people sitting around a table, and someone leaned over and said, what are you building at the moment? I said, I'm building a couple of classrooms. And they said, we're leaving Mozambique tomorrow. My father gave us some money to do a project with. We haven't had anything to do. Would you mind if we put the roof on your building? I said, here's the number of my hardware supplier. Give him a call and pay the bill. And they did. So we went and picked up the materials and off we went, and we continued and we finished the classroom. What that did, it showed the Africans that it wasn't me that provided for them. It was God that provided for them. And that was one of the things that became a bit of a milestone for the rest of our ministry, was teaching Africans that it's not about us. Yeah? And it's a bit like today. I don't want you guys to look at me and think I'm special, because I'm not. I just had a go. And I was willing to have no idea and have a go. We had another attack on us when it was time to leave the school. So it's time, the government gave us 600 acres of land. The leadership ran the school for 12 months without any of my input. They knew exactly what they were doing. The Department of Education was coming and visiting the school and saying, your school is the gem of Mozambique. We want you to teach us how we should run our schools. So I thought we've probably achieved everything we're going to achieve. We're starting to influence the local schools and getting invited to go to other schools. Even other private schools were inviting us to come and teach them how to run a school. I still had no idea. So I didn't know what to tell them, so I sent a Roni. You go and tell them how to run their school, because I don't know how to do it. So we get invited up to a hot spot in Mozambique. The people are very anti-government. They're just not happy people. And the government gets us to come up to try and change a few things, because they'd seen us teach in that area. They'd seen communities get the Bible college for a year, start working together. Churches have peace amongst each other instead of inter-church fighting. And they said, well, if you can do it for the church, maybe you can do it for the community. So they asked us to come up and live with them, gave us 600 acres of land, and we moved up there. We were up there for 18 months, and war broke out. So we ended up in the middle of the war zone. So 18 months, we weren't good enough to stop the war. So our 600 acres of land had troops on it, so we couldn't use it. We couldn't get in and out of town unless we had an armed escort. We're the only white people in town, so it was pretty interesting. But it was all good. The rebels, we'd worked with the rebels doing community development. We'd gone out to their communities with the government and asked them what they needed. And then I'd sit with the government, we'd work out how to meet those needs at no cost. Things like they needed a hospital, we'd give them a bus service. We'd give them a bus service so they could get to the hospital. They needed fresh water, we'd teach them how to dig a well. Just things where we would teach them that they needed transport to get their crops to town. We'd help them help the government build a road. Just little things that really help these communities get ahead. And when war broke out, the leaders of these communities were the leaders of the army. So they came and saw me and they said, Greg, don't sell your car. We know your car. If you stay in the community, we won't touch you. You'll be right. But if you have a government member in your car, we'll shoot you and them. So drive separately to any government. So we lived like that for 3 years, where the nearest supermarket was 130 kilometres away. To get to the supermarket was a 3-day trip. We needed one day in an armed escort to get there. We needed to do our shopping. We arrived in town when the supermarket was shut, so we had to wait the next day to get to the supermarket. And then we'd have to wait to the next day to get the armed escort back home. So it was a 3-day trip, so we'd do shopping about once every 6 weeks. And every time we went to town, the government would want to have meetings because at this stage we now represent the governor for any foreigners in the country because we tried to get discredited again. Someone tried to get us kicked out of the country, went to the government, told them how bad we were. The government called us in and asked us to defend ourselves. I said, I don't have any defence. I just was very disappointed they'd say those things. That was my only defence. The government called me in for 3 months and said, they're still saying it about you, what's going on? And so I've still got nothing to say. 3 months later, I said to the government, right, I've had enough of this. I'm going to go talk to the guy about what he has to say. So I rang him up and said, I'm coming to have a cup of tea. So I went out and I said, what's the problem? You tell me, you've got some issues. And he shared the first issue with me, and I said, you know me. Think about what you've just said. And he stopped and he thought about it and he said, yeah, I suppose I'm wrong. And then the second issue he shared, and I didn't have to say anything, he realised that he was wrong. And the third issue he never even shared. He said, no, I'm right. He apologised. He went to the government and apologised. Said I was wrong in what I was saying. So the government said to me, the governor called me in, the head of the Justice Department was the person that was talking to me, so the head of the court system was the one talking to me about this problem. And they were just going to remove our visa and kick us out of the country. It wasn't a problem. The worst case scenario is I get kicked out. I mean, my whole life I had that's hanging over my head. I think we lived in Mozambique for 11 years, and about 4 of those years we had a visa. I was always on the edge of being kicked out. I mean, the government knew we were there. They'd sign letters to say we could stay. They just wouldn't give us visas. So the governor called me for a meeting and said, we like the way you handled that situation. Can you please represent us to all the foreigners? So we became the governor's representative for all foreigners. Whenever there was a foreigner had a problem, we got sent to talk to them, find out their side of the story and come back, explain it to the government. So we were able to smooth things over for a lot of people. You know, people that are accused of smuggling guns because there's a war on. People that are accused of smuggling gemstones. People that are accused of drug running. People that are accused of being spies. We're able to smooth things over and help them stay where they were as missionaries, because people cause trouble to gain money. It's not about what those people are doing, it's just about what money you can have. So we left Mozambique, moved up to Kenya. While we're up in Kenya, we totally changed the way we did ministry. We stopped doing formal Bible college and started doing relational ministry. So I went and became friends with a member of parliament. Kim started going into hospitals. Kim would sit with people in the hospital and play cards with the kids that have been treated for cancer. She'd help them colour in. She'd do things, just spend time with them. Spend time with their parents, because these parents had to live in the hospital. They'd sleep under the bed for a year while their kids are being treated for cancer. Many of these people were Muslims. Many of them were traditional religions. A few of them were Christians. But Kim would always ask, would you like me to pray? And they'd always say, yes, please. And if she didn't go in, they'd ask about her. And she'd start getting phone calls and say, where are you this week? We miss you. And it's because she just had a relationship. She wasn't in there to preach the gospel. She wasn't in there to be a testimony. She was in there to spend time with the sick, to give them company, just to support them. With the government, I'd sit down with a member of parliament and ask him what his problems are in the community, and then I'd try and come up with a solution to that problem. So we ended up starting a feeding program where our aim was to feed 20,000 school kids, because we had no idea how to do that. We decided that we're going to have a farm where we grew pigs and chickens. Well, we knew how to grow chickens, so that was pretty normal, but we'd never done pigs, so let's have that a go. And then we decided to grow vegetables to supply the kitchen so we could feed the school kids. Well, we got up to about 5,000 kids a day last count, and it's still growing. So we'll get to the 20,000, and there'll be 20,000 public school children get fed a meal at school. And the reason for that is because 16% of those kids won't go to school if there's not a lunch, because they've got no food. Kids won't go to school on an empty stomach. So it helps them get to school, and then it helps them study and actually get better marks. So it's not about feeding kids, it's about educating them, but educating them by getting them to school. Yeah. So during our time in Africa, I share the good stories. There's been bad stories. There's been times when we've prayed for the sick. There was a time I got a member of parliament take me to his father who was dying, and I prayed for him and he died. Like, prayers weren't answered. But it doesn't mean we stop praying. We have to accept that God's will is God's will. My faith is the same faith when I pray for someone and they're healed and when I pray for someone and they die. It's the same faith. I haven't changed. So I can't stop praying for people. I just have to do it and take the bad. So with the times it's been bad and the times it's been hard, I've prayed and said to God, what am I doing? I mean, I spent years in the war zone very lonely. I had no friends for 3 years. And I said, God, what am I doing? You know, what am I doing here? And he said to me constantly, you're doing it for your kids, just keep going. So God thinks generationally. We think, what are we doing? The whole time I was in Africa, I don't think I was there for myself. I think I was there for my kids. So God just used our time of waiting to do some stuff. In Africa, train a few pastors, plant a few churches, raise a few chickens, feed a few kids. He was waiting for the next step, which is, what are our kids going to do? What's his plan for them? Whatever it is, it's bigger than his plan for us. So there's 3 distinct times in our walk where I said, right, this is too much for me, God. Either kill me or move me out. Well, he refused to kill me. First time was when I had malaria. First time I ever got malaria, I said, please kill me. I don't want this anymore. And he refused to kill me. I tell you, you've got to be sick to die, because that malaria, it's not good stuff. 2 other times I had the same prayer. God's answer was, you're strong enough, stay and do it for your kids. So Gabby and Thomas have grown up in Africa doing the things we do as normal. Their normal is us stepping out. You know, like they've never had to step out. We got ambushed one time where we're in a convoy and we get ambushed and 3 cars in front of us get shot up and my plan always was just put the foot on the gas, go for it. So I floor it. The kids are pushed back in in the back seat. Kim's pushed back in the seat, and I'm just dodging cars and getting out of there. 3 kilometres up the road, I took my foot off the gas, pulled over, and we assessed the damage. And Thomas says, "Oh, now I've got a story." What should scare you becomes a story. So their normal is pretty extraordinary. But Kim and I, our normal's still pretty normal. So yeah, I'd just like to encourage you. If God asks you to do it and you've got no idea, you're in the right place. Thank you so much for your support. Thank you for the years of support. You've been very faithful to helping us be where we felt God put us. We believe that we were where God put us. I'd like to honour everyone here because you've been part of our ministry for 16, 17 years. Thanks very much.